So during this training, we're going to talk about building mental resilience, also known as mental toughness. And I think mental toughness, just as a phrase, is intimidating. Being mentally resilient, well, what does that mean? And how do you increase your mental resilience? How do you strengthen your mental toughness? I think a lot of people that have gone through hard things have mental toughness. So how do we do that? How do we build that? Let's talk about it a little bit. And so the first thing, there's some interesting lessons I've had in my life from being a infant child until present day now, and things I just continue to try to strengthen and build because I'm growing. I train, I work on my mental resilience, and I'm a human, and we're all gonna fall short. We're all gonna have bad days. We're all gonna be um, less than what we want to be at times. And so the brain is really the key variable in between doing and not doing. And we can control our attitude. We have a choice we can make daily. However, how hard is it for us to lose like a champion, to have sportsmanship, to be a positive impact to an organization, a team, an environment? And it's a lot of it just the brain. It's not what we can regurgitate from a video or something we read, but life experience. And so there's some interesting lessons learned from combat as well as coaching athletes under pressure. And what does it mean under pressure? Well, in combat, it's life, limb, or eyesight. When it is talking about some of the stresses of combat, we can't come back at 8 o'clock the next day and it's 5 p.m. time to wrap it up and go home. There isn't any of that. So one is a leader in that environment, in that type of workspace, that operational workspace. You have some stressors where you have to figure out a solution. There's no we can't. You have to continue to build and grow in the resiliency and continuing, that you don't have a choice because there's men around you. There's a mission that you are tasked with executing. And depending on the organization you work in, in the Ranger Regiment, I did multiple deployments. I have 7 combat deployments over the years between Afghanistan and Iraq. And one portion of the Ranger Creed I kept with me was the last stanza. Readily will I display the intestinal fortitude required to fight on to the Ranger objective and complete the mission, though I be the lone survivor. Rangers lead the way. And that creed, that mental resilience built in to combat and continuing the mission, when there's a helicopter crash, when vehicles get blown up, when buddies get shot, it isn't let's freak out and turn into this victim of this is so difficult. But because of those difficult environments, there's a byproduct and the resiliency, knowing I have to continue. I don't have a choice. I have to do this. That have to do this under environments that are difficult. That builds this willingness in the machine, this motor inside of this engine. You are a vehicle, and inside that vehicle you have this engine, and this brain operates the engine and the vehicle. And as you stress the body, the brain, that engine continues to move under duress and stress. As you're pulling a trailer, as you're carrying weight, whatever that is, how can you execute? How can you operate under stress? It's easy doing training when they're blank rounds, but as soon as it's real life with live rounds, you also resort to training. And so training is a big proponent of your mental readiness, as well as the resilience when things get difficult. And so when it comes to coaching athletes under pressure, I've worked with special operations soldiers. I was a best ranger coach for multiple years. Professional supercross athletes, motocross athletes, jiu-jitsu guys, a lot of different sports. And the sport is the arena. Think about the Spartans going into the arena. or gladiators. And a lot of the sport aspect is, in theory, entertainment. But in that arena, there's stress to perform and execute. I've watched some of the fastest supercross racers at the track clocking laps and just rolling. They get into the arena, they start racing in front of 40,000 people. Now they're riding a little tight. Now they're a little anxious. Now they're a little stressed. They're a little nervous. Now in between the brain, they're getting a little uncomfortable. So they're not going to perform and execute like they did during training. However, if you're not training, you're not going to execute. And some of the best forms of training is competition. As you see those seasoned war dogs that's gone on thousands of missions, they're comfortable. They understand in war, there's loss, there's chaos, there's conflict, and that's where you switch on and you execute. In racing or competition, you'll have the same war dogs that have hundreds of races under, thousands of races under their belt, and they switch on when it's race time, when it's go time, when it's 3, 2, 1, go, they execute. And so I'd rather have somebody that's a better executor under pressure than a really good practicer. Practice makes perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect. And some of that is the stress in the environment that you're pulling in training. What pressure, what variables are you paying attention to of pressure? Weather being a variable. You can't control the weather, but sometimes you compete with unique weather variations. So when the weather's poor outside, how does that shift your attitude, your mindset? Do you let that impact you for the day? And do you actually go out and compete when the weather's poor, when it's hot, when it's cold, when it's rainy, when it's wet, when it's morning, when it's night? There's a lot of variables just in weather that can impact performance in competition, in combat. There's an old saying, if it's not raining, we're not training. Well, where that comes from is the hard mindset of an infantryman to work and train regardless of the environment. Bring it. You bring that weak crap. You bring that weak junk. Let's go. And it's a mentality shift to navigate fear, that you're not afraid. You're going to lean into that. And fear is an emotion. Fear is a liar. Fear is not real. It's just how you're feeling based on either the unknown in front of you or how you've prepared for that. And so stress inoculation and exposing yourself to difficulty on purpose. It's almost like bring on the suck. Oh, it's hard? Good. Oh, that sucked? Good. Oh, I'm going to make this suck worse. Good. So when I work with athletes, a thing we would do, with I'll just reference supercross, motocross guys. It's summertime. It's hot, but they're driving their vehicle with the air conditioning on. They're inside their house with the air conditioning on. So that transition from heat to cold, that's a big shift. And if you want to really perform well, what around your environment, around you completely, are you doing to lean into your performance? How uncomfortable are you willing to be when you train, but your day-to-day, to one, make training not as difficult, but also when it matters, the competition, to compete at your highest level, how difficult is the training around you? What type of people do you have around you in your day-to-day as well as competition that can elevate the training, that can elevate the performance? Look at your standards. What are the standards and the difficulty you have? And so when you have difficulty on purpose, that's going to stress the brain. And when something bad happens, which we'll get to in a second, how are you shaping that in your brain? Are you immediately frustrated, pissed off, upset? How well do you perform or execute when you're frustrated, upset, or pissed off? When things don't go your way? When a rider gets passed, it's like the wind gets out of the sails. Rather than motivation to stay after it, can you stay in the fight? When things aren't going your way, do you stay in the fight or do you retreat? Do you mentally just implode and you get frustrated? Or do you use that as good training, where competition is the best form of training? And we don't stop this fight of life until we die. Life is the ultimate survival sport. And so fighting for life day to day, how we operate, how we train, how we execute, that's preparing us from the unknowns ahead. The resilience to have when things don't go your way. You can bounce back. So, what are you exposing yourself of difficulty on purpose? Because you'll better execute if things around you are difficult and you say, good, it's making me better. And then reframing your setbacks as fuel. Good, that's going to make me better. Oh, it didn't go my way. Good. Oh, this happened. Good. It's a learning opportunity. When you look at the Alabama football team in their heyday of just going undefeated, years of just undefeated, what were they learning when they were winning? Just keep doing what we're doing. We're just going to continue to do what we do because it's working. And then look at everybody they played and what did they learn? They got to learn where they had holes in defense, offense, missed calls, miscommunication, mispreparation. Proper planning prevents poor performance. But when you look at the proper planning, what are you using? Use some of those setbacks. Use the loss. Use what did not go well. If you use what didn't go well, and that setback is going to help you succeed, use that as fuel, as good. I just learned something of extreme value. When we had missions not go well or incidents on target that weren't planned for, although that wasn't a mental positive of good, the byproduct from that lesson learned or that after action review on what we just did, on what happened or failed to happen, was extreme value. When things don't go to plan, that's a high value item and you can use it as fuel of growth. You're growing and it's a mentality shift, not of this sucks, that's BS, oh, this is unfair. And shift into that spiral of negativity, shifting into that spiral of being a victim. You're not a victim, you're a survivor. Again, life's a survival sport. So if you have a setback, good. You didn't plan for it, you didn't think about it. Use that as fuel. And there's a lot of links between your physical fitness and your physical discipline and your mental toughness. Discipline's not easy. When you are laying in bed and your pillow's comfy and you're hanging out there, it's soft, that feels great and it's hard to get out of bed. It takes mental toughness to get up and do the hard things. When you have discipline in your fitness to work through a hard set, to work through a long run, to work and train while you're sore, to navigate the unknowns when you're sore, the physical training and emphasis on difficulty, it's a direct correlation to the brain. You have to be mentally strong and mentally tough to be physically fit. And as you increase your physical readiness, your physical discipline, the discipline in increasing the education of you as a human athlete, you're going to get mentally strong, mentally resilient, physically capable based on your mental and physical preparation. They're directly linked and correlated to each other. You can't have one without the other. And you've seen very gifted, talented athletes that aren't hard workers. And then you see the athletes that are hardworking, nose to the grindstone, mentally tough. There's no quit, no stop. And if you don't stop, you will be successful. If you stop when it's hard, there's a limit. And so you need to continue as things get hard because your mindset, your resilience will be positive. It'll be a good takeaway. It's not going to be this sucks where this happened. So when you succeed and you win and it's easy, you're not going to go, awesome, that was great. Well, what did you learn? Just keep doing what you're doing? Or could you have learned something through that process of victory and defeat? Look at the mistakes you made that maybe you could have performed better. And when you lose, that's a great lesson learned. And some of my best lessons and wisdom I've learned was being unprepared, was mistakes I've made. It was things I've seen other people do when they weren't prepared, or even when they were, life happened. And that magical life happened, you have to be resilient, both physically and mentally. Thanks for the time. Comment below.